All right. Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. I am Mark Nelson, WWF Ambassador for the Philippines. Joining me here right now is Mr. Revilson Fernandez. Hey, Revilson.
Hello there. Hi, Mark. You named every single person that matters except one more. I might have to add them. That is, of course, our fellow Panda Warriors out there, too. So we can't forget about them. And that's pretty much everybody. Hello and welcome.
Hello indeed. First off, I want to say welcome everyone to this conservation conversation. I know it's usually done with our wonderful WWF Youth Council, and they do an amazing job. So we feel very privileged, Revilson and I, to be invited to join them to talk about environmental education. That will be the subject of today. But before we get into that, I just want to give a shout out and say Happy Coral Triangle Day. Did you know it's Happy Coral Triangle Day today, Revilson?
As in June 9, today is Happy Coral Triangle Day?
Yes.
Wow, right after World Ocean Day as well. Yep. Wow, June is a environmental month. I posted about that today. It's an environmental month. I did not know that, and I'm glad. I'm glad we're giving light to the Coral Triangle. Very important piece of property that the Earth has.
Yes, and in fact, here in the Philippines, we are at the very epicenter of marine biodiversity within that Coral Triangle. In fact, the Verde Passage, I think, was ruled as being the very center of marine biodiversity in that Coral Triangle. So that's something we can be very, very proud of. Now, we're talking about environmental education today. I want to ask you, Ro, you went to school in the States. I mean, yes. Neither one of us, well, actually, I went to school here for a few years in middle school, but generally we were brought up overseas. Did you have much environmental education growing up?
Absolutely. And, you know, I love the fact that it started at a very young age. So kindergarten, from my understanding, from what I can remember and from what I see of my current nephews who are going to kindergarten, they start out with environmental studies at a gradual capacity. So, you know, they're out collecting leaves, you know, for instance, and they're making imprints of the leaves, or, you know, they're playing with earthworms. You know, the teachers are allowing them to go outside and play with earthworms. You know, simple little things like that. And as you get older and, you know, grade 1, grade 2, grade 3, grades 4, it's a gradual increase in knowledge about, you know, about the environment, about photosynthesis. Photosynthesis is a word that I'm so glad I knew back in the 4th grade, but I didn't know how to spell, but I was so proud that I knew what photosynthesis was. But yes, it was a very big factor in my life. And, you know, it led me to who I am today and who you are today, somebody who just absolutely not just knows about nature, but respects it and understands it. How about you? How were things in Australia?
Well, I left Australia when I was quite young, but one of the advantages of doing that is I moved to Africa. And so we grew up by the beach, but also on weekends we'd go on safari. So from quite an early age, I guess I was exposed to the natural environment and had an appreciation for it. Something that I'm very, very thankful to have experienced back then. And then when I did eventually go back to Australia, I mean, when I was attending school here at the international school, we certainly talked about environmental sciences. But I remember there was a specific subject back in Australia called environmental science. It was something that we took in our final 2 years, because before that, environmental sciences was part of the geography curriculum. But then later in the final 2 years, then we really got into the nitty-gritty of it. And it's amazing. I mean, that was quite some time ago, but a lot of the stuff that we talked about back then, I'm now seeing come to pass in front of my very eyes. I mean, we talked about, you know, back then it was all about greenhouse gases, you know, stopping chlorofluorocarbons, you know, the hole in the ozone layer and everything. But the climate change, melting of the ice caps and everything was something, okay, that'll happen. You know, it could happen very soon. Back then we'd say maybe in like 50 to 100 years. But it's been a lot less than that. And we're seeing it happen right now, which is why environmental education, I think, is so important, so people can realize that it's moving so quickly.
Yeah. And you know, as a parent, I would love environmental studies to be considered as important as arithmetic, as reading, as the basic, things of knowledge that somebody needs, a child needs in order to succeed in life. And, me learning the environment about Mother Nature and you as well, it absolutely made me a better person. And we were able to utilize the knowledge of what we learn about nature, because the greatest teacher, the greatest architect is Mother Nature. And you can apply this into different parts of your chosen career, which we will get into.
Yes, we will. But you know what I mean?
No,
yeah,
and mind you, I also know how much tuition costs nowadays, any country. And darn it, if my kids aren't getting that extra oomph from, if they're not getting environmental studies, I feel like I'm getting ripped off. I feel like my child is not getting the complete education. You know what I'm saying? So, it's expensive, and they deserve to know that extra bit of knowledge.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, you and I, we've been out of the school system for quite some time, but of course, our youth council are very much either they are still in it or they just got out of it fairly recently. So first off, we want to invite to join us one of those. She's a very good friend of ours and ridiculously talented. She's a sophomore at Boston University doing a double major in sociology and international relations. And I know that the first time that you and I heard her speak, we listened to her talk passionately about the environment, something that she is really, really into. And we looked at each other and were like, damn, we need to up our game. This girl knows her stuff. So without much further ado, ladies and gentlemen, may we please welcome Nikki Huang.
Hello, Nikki.
Hello. Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Loud and clear.
Perfect. Well, first of all, thank you both so much for such a generous introduction. I feel a lot of pressure now. But I just wanted to say hello to all our viewers. Obviously, Mark and Rove have already talked to you about what we're going to be discussing today. And personally, I've been very, very excited for this conservation conversation, because we're not only going to be talking about environmental education, which is, of course, an extremely important topic. We're going to be talking about our own careers. Everyone we have on the panel today has had a very different career path, and I think it will be super interesting for our audience to figure out how they can apply environmental education no matter what they're doing to make a living. And so with that, I actually want to call on my fellow National Youth Council members, Gab, Mina, and Dane, to turn on their cameras and introduce themselves. Hello, everyone.
Hey, guys.
Thank you for joining. First, Dane, why don't you say hello and tell everyone a little bit about yourself?
Oh, me?
Yes, you, Dane.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Happy World Oceans Day and happy Coral Triangle Day. Anyway, I'm Dane Soriano. I'm currently living here in Baguio City. I'm a member of the National Youth Council for almost, I think, 4 years already. So we started in 2016 for the first and the second batch. So yeah, I'm a faculty member here in the University of the Philippines, Baguio. I teach biology, ecology, and those stuff. The technical and the scientific stuff of things and organisms and all that stuff. But right now I do a lot of advocacy work with WWF-Philippines and all other organizations which I am part of. So yeah.
Thank you so much, Dane. Thank you for joining us today. We're very excited to have you here. And I'm sure the audience has many questions. So for all those interested, please leave some questions in the comment section. We are going to be answering them as the live goes by. And next, I'd like to call on Mina. Please say hello to everyone.
Hi everyone. Hi Mark. Hi Rob.
Hey, Mina.
What's up, Mina?
Hi. So I'm Mina. I'm part of the second batch of the NYC, and I'm the current NYC co-chairperson. So unfortunately, Tiana is not here to join us. I've been a member of WWF NYC since 2018, but I'm really a marine researcher by profession. So I'm a graduate student and a research assistant at the Marine Science Institute. And during my free time, I like to volunteer and give lectures and talks about the marine environment. So ayun, happy Coral Triangle Day, everyone, and belated Happy World Oceans Day.
Mina, thank you again so much. We're super excited to have you. And finally, last but definitely not least, Gab, may you please introduce yourself to our audience today?
Hey everyone. Hey Nikki. Hey Mark and Rob.
Hey, Gab.
What's up?
What's up? I'm Gab. So I'm also part of the WWF National Youth Council Batch 2. So I'm with Nina and everyone. And I'm actually a conservation photographer and filmmaker, natural history filmmaker. So I do more on stories about the environment.
We love your work, Gab. It is absolutely amazing. We're
Yes.
so jealous.
I still want to take photography lessons from you.
Gab, we are also super excited to have you. That was a very modest introduction. So for everyone who isn't already aware, Gab is an award-winning photographer, and we're super, super lucky to have him here today. And he's also pursuing civil engineering. Correct me if I'm wrong,
Yeah.
Gab, in
Yep.
UP. So yes, basically Gab does not sleep, but he gets that done. Okay, so let's begin, guys. Mark and Rolf, you want to get us started off with the first questions for today's discussion?
Yeah, well, as you may have heard, Ravilsa and I were just talking earlier about environmental education, the experiences that we had during our time, which was, obviously a little bit earlier and in different countries. So we're curious to know what the state of environmental education is here in the Philippines at present. Dane, do you want to, since you're an educator, would you like to hit that one?
Yeah. So just to give you a brief context about environmental education here in the Philippines, to be fair, we have an existing law and policy about environmental education. So it's Public Act 9512, or it's a promotion of environmental awareness through environmental education and other purposes here in the Philippines. And this law was actually enacted in 2008. So basically, what the law says is that the DepEd, the Department of Education, the Commission on Higher Education, TESDA, and other government agencies should have connections in terms of promoting initiatives and activities, engaging our school children, the youth in particular, in terms of environmental awareness. So in terms of the implementation of these laws, most of the schools all over the Philippines are doing this actually. My experience, since I'm teaching in UP and I'm teaching college students, I was once an NSTP facilitator. So we have a specific module for the environment and sustainability. So we have a separate lesson for that, and biology teachers would usually handle the module and the course for environmental sustainability for our college students. But in the setting of elementary students and even secondary students, like our high school students, they have specific modules which are of course given by the elementary and secondary teachers. So they have this specific training course on the environment. And I think a lot of science books right now are being contextualized so that we're promoting biodiversity of our country itself, of the Philippines itself. So most of the time when I was a kid before, I usually see examples of animals and plants that are non-native to our country. So I would see plants that are actually growing in the US or in Australia or in the Europe or in the Africa. But we rarely see plant species or animal species that are found in the Philippines. But right now, what's good about the change in our environmental education curriculum for all of the students in the Philippines is that they're trying their best to incorporate and integrate these native species, these endemic species in the Philippines, in these books, modules, and all other activities for our students. So that's just a brief context of environmental education. If you go out at the academic setting, even at the elementary, high school, or college level, there are a lot of ways in which institutions and NGOs promote environmental education as their methodology in raising environmental awareness and sustainability.
Okay, awesome. Yeah.
Can I take a quick survey? with Gab, Mina, Dane, of course you answered, but take the survey again. Nikki, do you remember having environmental education studies in grade school? Raise hands. Yes. Say kindergarten to first grade, second grade. Yes. Raise hands. No. No way. That is shocking. When, okay, now my next question is, when did you remember having some sort of environmental studies? At what grade? At what level of education? Mina, go ahead. What was that?
Oh no, Mina had it at grade school. I think it was Gab and Dane that didn't.
Okay. Okay.
So yes. What was
Actually,
your personal
I
experience?
had like environmental education, sort of like curriculum when I was in high school, and that was through my exposure to an environmental organization in my high school. That was
So
really
you,
entered in a sense.
yeah, you went and pursued it yourself. It wasn't a curriculum that was, you know, supposed to be part of the curriculum.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know, fascinating. Okay, and everyone else, Nikki, Gab, Mina, wala.
Well,
Oh, no, they did.
I actually went to the same high school as Mark over here. So he's a proud alumni.
Almost
Okay,
the
cool.
same year.
Oh, yeah. We just missed each other, you know. No, but that's actually a really good question. I'd say I'm pretty lucky. I went to international school my whole life. First, I went to Beacon International School, and then I went to International School Manila. And our schools both do a curriculum called the International Baccalaureate. And one thing that's really cool about doing the IB program, it's extremely rigorous, but there is so much focus on sustainability and environment. To the point that in high school, which I think is when a lot of people focus more on environmental studies, I was able to pursue geography at a pretty high level and get college credit for it. But one thing I do notice, though, is that my experience is actually quite unique, at least for education in the Philippines. So while it's been great for me and I've been exposed to environmental studies for a really long time, I definitely think that, you know, there are cases here where environmental education doesn't start as soon as we want it to. However, WWF is doing some great work with the Department of Education, really integrating environmental and nature studies into the school curriculum. So can anyone tell us a little bit about that and their own experience? Maybe Mina or Gab, we'd love to hear.
Go ahead, Mina.
I'll go ahead.
Under the bus.
I'm actually lucky because I studied in Miriam College from nursery up until high school. So if you don't know, the school's uniform is the green skirt and the khaki blouse. And people would always joke that our uniforms look like inverted trees. And as Miriam students, you were able to embrace that because one of the core values of Miriam is integrity of creation. The school would really instill environmentalism in all of us. They would teach us the 7 environmental principles. Yun yung nature knows best, all forms of life are important, and every year, even in the early years, even if it became so repetitive, you were encouraged to play go, to clean as you go, to really use recycled materials for school projects, to dispose of and segregate our trash, to participate in newspaper drives. So right now, Miriam College, they even revived their zero waste program so that the students would bring their own baonan and tumblers. So, ayun, I owe a lot of my environmentalism to my school.
Awesome. How about you, Gab?
Yeah, so I studied in a Catholic private school in Ateneo. So unfortunately, sad to say that I didn't really get that kind of environmental science or education that I think growing up as a teen or as an adolescent should have. It was really just really surface level. So it was like, okay, they're going to include a little bit about environmental education in physics, or they're just going to include it in a little bit of geology. So they're not really, it's not really in depth. So I think that's what really lacked it was just really mere surface level theoretical knowledge about the environment. So which was sad, but they still tried in a way by like teaching us how to segregate, remembering the 3 R's, the recycle, reuse,
Reuse.
reduce, recycle, but it's not really as in depth.
That's
I
super
think-
interesting. Please, Mark, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was going to say, I think it's somewhere that, I mean, as Dane mentioned, there is, like a law from 2008 that's in place, but much like a lot of them, I think it's the implementation that maybe needs a little bit of work. And it's very difficult, especially for the public school system here in the Philippines that might not have the funding that they need in order to implement anything new, even though, I mean, environmental science, should have been implemented a long time, but I mean, 12 years, 2008. But obviously they need to upgrade their textbooks, and a lot of these schools are, they have too many students, they don't have enough teachers, they don't have enough, resources, just for the simple things. And so they're very focused on that. So I feel that maybe environmental education isn't getting the priority resources that it really deserves. And it's something that I hope that the public sector and maybe even the private sector can contribute into helping. Because those of us that went to private schools, we're very lucky because we do have those resources. And so the will is there from the public sector. We also need to train the teachers, because a lot of the public teachers are coming from a public school system as well. So how can they teach the kids if they don't know what they're talking about themselves? They learn, math and science and everything. But if they didn't learn environmental science when they were at school, how can they then go and teach it effectively?
Yes, that's a very, very good point, Mark. And speaking of, guys, I think this is the perfect time to ask you all a question that we have from the comments from Miss Kiana Porras, our fellow NYC member who's watching right now. So hi, Kiana. Thank you for a wonderful question. And I'm going to turn it over to all of you. I feel like we might have different opinions, and I definitely think it's going to be really interesting to see what everyone has to say. So the question is, if there is one topic about environmental sustainability that every child should know, what would it be and why? I feel like we might need some time to think about that. I mean, obviously, we would like to teach everyone everything there is to know, but in this day and age, there's a lot of knowledge out there and it's quite difficult. So yeah, I don't know. What do we think?
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
Wow.
I know.
Oh boy. I say
Okay.
we let the teacher answer first, and then we copy the teacher's answer. So that would be
I think
Dane.
that's a good idea.
Dane has to answer first.
So we now know how Vilsa managed to get through college.
You mean high school?
Okay. I was caught off guard. I'm sorry. Anyway.
Yes.
So Nikki, the question is, what's
What's up?
The
one?
question is, Dane, if there's one topic about environmental sustainability that every child should know, what would it be and why? So I guess your first choice, most important topic, anything like that.
Okay.
You look stressed, Dane. It's okay.
Just say that.
Do you need a minute?
The question is, it has to be contextual. Like, it's when you say, if I'm sort of like biased because of course I'm teaching college, but for a preschool or for an elementary student, I can say biology or I can say climate change because that would sound too technical for them to understand and comprehend. But for me, I think it's about going back to the reason why we started environmental education. It's sharing to the kids why Earth is important, why our resources, our natural resources and biodiversity are important in sustaining lives. And I think it has to start really small and simple, but then later on, as they grow, as they understand more complex stuff, they get to understand the technicalities of it, the science of it, and all. So maybe just going back to the reason why Earth and nature is important, something like that.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah, I agree with Dane, and I think it's important to teach kids why the environment, why conservation of the environment is important. I mean, it's important for the air we breathe, for the water we drink, for the food that we eat. Everything about us being alive is dependent on the environment. So you need to really drum that into them. And, you give them examples that are easy to relate to. So humans teach their kids at a very young age how to take care of certain things. Like, okay, don't set the kitchen on fire because you'll burn the house down, we'll have nowhere to live. Don't let the bathroom flood because then you'll ruin the house and then we'll have nowhere to live. Don't make utot in an enclosed room because your dad's going to kill you and you're not going to be able to live. And so making people realize that, kids realize that the Earth, the planet, is our collective home. And so we need to treat it the same way we treat our home. There are certain things that you can't do at home in order to survive, in order to keep the home there as a protector of you. So the world is just a larger version of that. And all of us are one big family that needs to take care of it so it can continue taking care of us.
Well said, Mark. Regarding the otot, that's called greenhouse gases, something we learned in the 8th grade. But I would even break it down, and taking my cue from what Dane said, I would break it down into two ways, where if I was teaching kids in the 70s and 80s when we grew up, I would make it as simple as it's all about the trees. It is all about the trees. They are the lungs. Well, the ocean, of course, are the lungs, but they also provide energy. And, I would break it down to as far as, the trees are life as much as water is life. Trees are also life, and they are our friends. Now, if I was teaching classes in this day and age to people that were our age, unfortunately now the biggest concern is plastic and microplastics, and that is the future that this generation and you guys are going to have to be concerned with. So plastic will still be a part of our lives, but we're going to have to influence these kids, the future innovators, to make better packaging, to use less packaging, to recycle. So I would break it down into those two ways. One is, learning about the trees and breaking it down very simple about the oceans. And then nowadays it's all about plastics. That, in my opinion, is what I would be concerned with.
Yes, that's a very interesting point, Grove. Thank you. And I know that Mina has an answer for this question. So Mina, let us know what you think.
I honestly think that every child should know what the native animals are. Every Filipino kid should know the local and endemic fauna and flora. For example, the Philippine eagle, the tarsier, the Visayan spotted deer, the waling-waling. The animals and plants that can be found in the Philippines. Kasi di ba, a child would know and identify a giraffe or an elephant first, but they don't know what a tarsier looks like. So I think it's important to know the animals that can be found here in the Philippines. So these kids will know what to protect.
Yeah,
it's true. And I always remember the point that people make about it's easier for humans to protect what they care about, what they can see, and what they empathize with. So, I think that's an excellent point.
exactly.
And writing on what Mina said, it also promotes patriotism. And for me, I believe one of the greatest encouraging things that makes people and encourages them to protect their lands is, of course, patriotism. I love the Philippines, so I'm going to do whatever it takes to make this a clean country. So yes, kudos to you, Mina, for bringing that up. I don't want to say I hated the fact that I knew more about koala bears and polar bears and kangaroos when I lived in California. I wish we knew more about the the golden eagle, the California condor, the golden poppy. I wish we knew more about our endemic animals so that we would be more patriotic to our land that we live in. So there.
Rove, I wanted to comment on the timeliness of that statement because it is Independence Day pretty soon.
That's right. Next week.
Mhm.
June is an insane month. There's a lot going on in June.
Yeah, it's also Pride Month, and yeah.
Oh, that's right. That's
it's
right.
It's a busy month. How about you, Gab?
Yeah,
What
I
do
think
you
I
think is
agree
most
with
important?
everyone, but I think in my opinion, I wanted to add like about interconnectedness, how like a lot of our societal problems that's not being talked about is related to the environment as well. And it's something that we lack so much because like we're not aware about these issues, how the issues that we face today as a society is not being talked about and how it connects with like the environment. For example, like plastic pollution, how poverty and plastic pollution are connected. Like if we don't learn more about how the problems that we have today in our setting as Filipinos are related as well to the environment, I think that would help because it gives a lot of people assets and ways to go into different career paths, to think like, okay, the environment is a part of like economical problems, about business, about education. So if you give people the awareness of these different facets of the environment, of what they could choose through, not like just biology and biodiversity or conservation, but people could actually choose in building a sustainable career depending on something that they learn. So I think like this part of interconnectedness is something I hope we could get more in environmental education.
You know what? I agree with Gab 100% there. I think something that a lot of people don't realize, they think, okay, environment it's just environment. But I mean, you look at a lot of the problems around the world, whether it be like there's lack of water is an environmental issue because the waterways are polluted, or they're not getting enough rain, and that causes strife, it causes political unrest, it causes war, it causes forced refugee immigration. You've got the environment affecting climate change, so all of a sudden it's developing warmer seas, which creates stronger storms, typhoons and hurricanes. You've got acidification of coral reefs. It's affecting fish stocks. So all of a sudden, like people are going hungry because they don't have enough fish. I mean, everything is interconnected. Every single facet of our lives is interconnected. Even like obviously health and everything down the line. So Gab, that's an awesome point. That pretty much any industry you're in, you are somehow affected by the environment. And so it is such a valuable subject to study that will later on have an impact on what you choose to do for a career.
Yeah.
Yes, Mark, thank you for that. Actually, for everyone watching, we are going to shortly discuss the different career paths all our speakers have taken and how environmental education has served them or even led them to their chosen professions. So if you have questions about that, please leave them in the comments on Facebook. But before we do move to part 2, everyone, we have a really good question from Ira. I hope I pronounced that right. Hi, Ira. Thank you for your question. And she's asking, what do you think is the most strategic way to get our children involved in environmental sustainability and conservation? I think this is an excellent question. So let's go.
All right, I'll kick this off. I think, was it Mina, I think, who mentioned earlier about just having or maybe it was you, Nikki, experiencing nature.
Mm-hmm.
I think that when you're out there and you can see something, you can appreciate it. A perfect example of that is if you take someone to visit the whale sharks in Donsol, which I know a few of us have done, then all of a sudden you have turned everyone that jumps in the water into a lover of whale sharks and thereby the ocean, and they want to do something to protect them because they're like, oh, we see it, we appreciate it, it's beautiful. It's a feeling that you can get. You can talk about it, in a classroom, but it's different from actually experiencing it. To that end, even like now with the lockdown, even though there are so many, sadly terrible stories of illegal fishing going on during the lockdown, of wildlife poaching on the rise during lockdown. Some good part, a good part that's come out of it is the blue skies, the cleaner waterways that people are seeing. And sometimes this is the first time people are seeing it in their entire lives, because before that, they didn't know that it existed. So they weren't able to appreciate it. So I'm hoping that moving forward, people will say, oh, so this is what clean air is like. I appreciate it, and I would like to keep it that way. Oh, this is a way like a clear, a clear river is, or maybe I can try and keep it that way. I know that a friend of mine that went to Europe with me once, and he's grown up in the Philippines his entire time, and we're walking through a park in the Netherlands, and he was walking around and he's like, wow, this is really, really beautiful. I really wish we had something like this in the Philippines. He was an environmentalist. He wasn't into anything like that, but just the realization and the appreciation of how beautiful nature can be is something that you have to experience to really appreciate. And so that's something that I think more people should try and do.
Yes,
Mina,
thank you, Mark.
Yeah.
Mina?
Yeah, I completely agree with you, Mark. I really believe that the best way to learn is through experience. And the best way to learn about the environment is to experience nature firsthand. So you have to go outside. And once you're outside, you'll either appreciate the beauty of nature or you'll be angry after seeing the damage you once have done. And in both cases, you'll be driven to protect the earth. So deeper emotions come from actually being there and immersing yourself.
Very
Well
true.
said.
Okay, well, I think
Okay.
with that, again, thank you so much to Ira. Hello, if you're still watching, what a great question. I think it's definitely important to get more young people involved in nature and conservation, because even though I'm sure we hear it all the time, we are the generation that's growing up to live on this earth. And so in line with growing up, we are going to now talk a little bit about how environmental education has helped all of us on our academic and our professional journeys. Now, we have a whole host of individuals on our panel today who have all done very different things with their lives. So I'm just going to throw it out there for you guys. I hope everyone has an answer for this question. Basically, how has environmental education and your work in conservation either helped you professionally or even led you to the profession that you're in today? Actually, I have a document right here with everyone's accomplishments. So guys, please don't be shy. Please share with our audience all the amazing, amazing things that you've done. Yeah, so let's begin. If not, I'm gonna call on you all.
Okay, I can start.
I say you.
So yeah,
I say you call Nikki. Just call people and end the misery. End our misery.
Okay. I'm gonna call. Gab, we know
Okay.
that you are Nat Geo Explorer. You know, every time I open my Instagram feed, you're on some mountain or doing some TED Talk. So please tell us a little bit about environmental education and what you do for a living.
Yeah, so actually my environmental education came from experience-based learning. So like what we were talking, what Mark was saying. So it was actually my dad who introduced me to more of like, okay, hiking, mountaineering, and just being immersed in nature as a kid when I was still 13. I still remember vividly that day when I was brought in the mountains. And I could still pinpoint that exact moment to the passion that I have now as a career as a photographer, because like I wanted to capture, like as a photographer, I wanted to capture the moments that I shared with nature, the moments that I get to appreciate nature in these mountains and the oceans, in these wetlands. And that part really played a big role as shaping me into a conservation photographer, because like there are different genres of photography that I could go into or into the arts, right? Like I could be a wedding photographer or I could go to commercial. but just like reminiscing and being nostalgic about it as a child, that hey, I want other people to experience, I want other kids to experience these mountains that I was privileged enough to experience when I was a kid. So I wanted to bring that through photography, through journalism, and sharing them the beauty and fragility of our planet. And I think like without that experience-based learning that I got from my dad, from being just brought into the world, I don't know what I would be right now. Actually, I honestly would be lost.
Wow, that's beautiful. And speaking of June, actually, Gab, in relation to your story about your dad, it also is Father's Day soon.
Oh,
So
wow.
Jeez.
yeah, that was a wonderful message. And I wanted to follow that up, Gab. So obviously, I think, especially nowadays where everyone has access to a very high quality camera, even just on their mobile devices, I feel like everyone has dabbled a little bit in photography, right? But what I want to ask you, Gab, is most people have not made it to the level that you have succeeded in photography. So throughout your career, what has helped you reach the levels that you have reached? What advice do you have for budding photographers nowadays?
I think it's the mentorship that I got. It's a real important thing to find or seek these teachers and mentors that could really help you in your career as a photographer. So I think even in environmental, because like the topics that I document are about the environment, about the degradation of the environment, or about wildlife, like the tamaraws that we have. So without the mentors that I had, without the people helping me to find these stories, or like without the people who have these stories at hand, the level I think of storytelling or photography would not be the same. So I'm really grateful for all the mentors that I had within the environmental aspect, with photography aspect as well.
All right. So Gab, will you mentor Revilson and I in how to take pictures?
Why not?
Yes, yes.
Okay,
who's next?
perfect. I actually, in line with that, Gab, I wanted to turn it over now to our two other NYC members who are both doing incredible things in UP. You guys are heavily involved with academia. I think you are the most amazing environmental warriors. And so tell us a little bit, Dane and Mina, about how you've incorporated environmental education and your passion for the environment into your studies. Let us know.
So I've mentioned earlier that I'm currently a grad student and research assistant at the University of the Philippines Marine Science Institute. So basically what I do is I go to the ocean, dive, study the reef and its inhabitants, and go back to the institute with the collected data for analysis. So although people usually perceive marine biologists as always out in the field, a huge part of our time is actually spent on data analysis, desk research, or writing. The very field I'm affiliated with creates the primary sources people use today. So research creates knowledge. Research expands the world for us. I'll share with you this quote by what's his name? Buckminster Fuller. He said that the more we know, the more we realize how little we know. And that's really true. After many explorations to the great depths of our oceans, we now know how little we know about the life existing there, and how much of the ocean is basically unexplored. So this discovery of new knowledge actually keeps research going because it paves the way for more and more questions. So everything we know now, we know because somebody asked the question.
Well, thank
That's
you
a
for
great
asking
quote.
those conservation questions when you're researching all of this stuff. I dare say you're going to find some very interesting stuff. We look forward to reading the environmental papers authored by you in the future.
Actually, my current thesis topic actually came into existence because of the recent discovery of shallow hydrothermal vents in Mabini, Batangas. So ayun, we just have to be really curious all the time.
Are you talking about the underwater hot springs.
Yeah. You can see bubbles seeping out from the seafloor.
I've gone scuba diving there, and I remember we used to bring eggs down and put them in there, and they would cook the eggs by the end of the dive.
Yeah, because it's really the temperature is really high. So it's a different environment compared to the adjacent seawater. So that's actually my site for my thesis.
Cool.
And Mina, I'm a quote guy. You have to repeat that again from Mr. Buckminster one more time, because I think I live my life like that. The more, how does it go again?
The more we know, the more we realize how little we know.
That's my life. That is my life. Beautiful quote. Thank you for sharing that.
Yes, thanks, Mina. Now I know, Dane, you have some stuff to add about your life in academia. Please share.
So just want to share because we're talking about environmental education and how important people realize that the environment is important and all that stuff. So I'm a teacher by profession because I have a degree in biology, and I'm also teaching biology students in the same institution where I graduated. So really, because we're talking about environmental education, I just want to thank my professors here in UP Baguio for mentoring me to be the very best environmental educator somehow in the NYC and all. But yeah, I just want to share this learning that I got still from the NYC and all of the initiatives that I've done for the environment. It's always how to take the leadership from the most impacted people. And I feel like for all the researches, fieldworks that I've done in the Cordillera and in other places here in the Philippines, communities would have different problems and they would have different concerns when it regard to the environment. And I feel like the best way to answer those environmental problems is to give them or to take the leadership from those communities. And being an educator, part of what I do is to listen to people, to listen to my students, and to listen to other people's concerns. So it's not only pushing forward what you want for the environment, because we always have these amazing ideas, we have amazing initiatives, and we really want to implement these in specific communities. But sometimes, and I learned this because again, I'm an educator, the best way to learn from those people is to actually listen from them and take the leadership from those communities. And when you get to listen from their concerns and all that stuff, you can actually craft or formulate your own initiative that are actually better in terms of its methodology and framework compared to the ones that you're trying to think of. So it's bringing the leadership towards those people. That's what I learned from all of my exposure for the environment. So.
Excellent.
Sorry, Gab. Dane, thank you so much. But Mark and Rove, you've been waiting patiently, and I wanted to ask you guys now, as the older generation and in today's panel, you obviously have a lot of experience, right, in the professional world. So can you tell us a little bit about how environmental education has played a role in your careers?
Mark, you mind if I
go right
take
ahead.
This one really quickly, sir? Well, Mark and I think when we write down what as our occupation, it would be host. It would be television host. We are on a stage. We're usually working in an air-conditioned environment. We're working with electronics. We're working in a material world, very far from nature. Now, in my case, how I was led to being in the TV and film industry is because I really, really enjoyed watching. There was a program when I was growing up that my brothers and I would always watch called Mutual of Omaha. And I think it was an insurance company that presented safaris and documentaries about Africa. So here I am, a little kid watching, all these documentaries about Africa and Southeast Asia and Asia and all these wonderful animals. So that is what led me into wanting to be a documentary filmmaker. That was my emphasis when I went to film school. So that's what I thought I would be doing. I thought I would be working in that capacity with animals. So of course, that wasn't my chosen field, but at least my love for media and film and television was medyo influenced, or at least I thought it would be, by, you know, nature. Unfortunately, it didn't happen that way, but at least I can still continue, because now I have a platform with my love for the environment. And well, that's why I'm proudly a WWF National Ambassador. So that's where nature has led me on this path. How about you, Nelson?
Well, I became a television host kind of by accident. I mean, I've done all sorts of jobs around the world, and when I came here, I was backpacking. And anyway, you know, long story short, I got into television, and I'm known as a host. And I guess if I was to break it down further, I'm probably known as a travel show host. And a love and appreciation for the environment has been very, very handy. And it's also made me aware of just how quickly and how drastically the environment is changing. I mean, for the past 20 years, I've been traveling the length and breadth of this amazing country, and I've seen the changes firsthand and how quickly they happen. I've seen like the change in the sea life. I mean, I know that Mina spends a lot of time in the water, so I'm sure she's seen changes in you know, like the period of time that she's been doing it. But I was diving here in the Philippines back in the 80s with my parents. And now to see what it's like and see how the beaches are full of plastic, how the oceans are full of plastic, how the coral reefs are dying, how the sea levels have risen drastically. Like within less than 10 years, you see water washing away foliage that has been there for hundreds of years, and it's happening so quickly. And this goes back to what I was saying earlier about studying it in school. When they talked about the changes that could happen if we didn't pay closer attention and do something about helping save the environment back then, we talked about happening in 50 to 100 years. Now it's like 20 years later, and it's happening so much faster than anyone expected or realized. And when you literally see it in front of your very eyes within the span of a few years, it just drives home the importance and the immediacy of needing to address it on a global level. And it's not just something that we can address and say, we can start on a neighborhood level, on a friendship level, and spreading our influence. And this goes, I'm very, very fortunate, like with Wilson, that because of my work, I now have a platform in order to expound, how important this is. And I'm so thankful for that. But everyone has a platform. If you, I know Wilson has mentioned this in one of our recent podcasts, if you have like 5 followers, then you have a platform. If you've got a dozen friends and family, you have a platform. You can influence these people. So whatever your chosen career, you influence people, in your school, in your workplace. This is something that each and every one of us can do. And it's how we can incorporate the environmental education into any occupation that we do.
You're here.
Yes, Mark, thank you so much for that. And I just wanted to acknowledge a comment from one of our viewers, Jay-Z Herrera. I hope I pronounced that properly, which I should have, because that is also my middle name. So hello. And he says, I think most people or students become more aware of the environment or nature through media such as travel shows, environmental organizations, etc. So that's a really good point. Thank you so much for being with us today, guys.
Actually,
Yes.
I just want to add on to that. I'm very, very thankful and fortunate that the show that I'm currently doing at the moment, Beached, we have an entire segment of the show devoted every week to the environment, on sustainability, and featuring either the issues of the place that we're featuring, the environmental issues that we're featuring, or a person or group that is trying to tackle one of the issues regarding whether it be pollution or saving mangroves or anything like that. And I really hope that more shows can do that and incorporate it in much the same way that we need to incorporate it into the school curriculum.
Yes, and I would also like to add to that, the current show I have also as well on GMA News, Ang Pinaka, which has been on for almost 15 years now. I was able to influence my writers and producers to have, it's a weekly show, and one episode a month is pertaining to the environment, which I'm so glad that they were on board with. And Sir Ogie, who's actually on listening right now, hello, Sir Ogie. He's the head writer. Thank you so much for producing wonderful, wonderful environmental episodes. So thank you. And my second thing is, wow, Nikki, your middle name is Jay-Z, really? That's awesome.
Not quite. It's Herrera, but I mean, that would be cool too.
That would be really cool. But thank you, Jays, for your question. Just to add, you know, if there's one thing that we all do here working with WWF, it's raising awareness. I always say that is our greatest weapon in the fight for climate change or fight against climate change, and that is awareness. Okay, so that is what we do. So thank you for that. And you have a cool first name, sir.
Yes, he definitely does. And I guess I just wanted to add, I think out of everyone on our panel, I've just started my undergraduate education, and people always ask me, well, first of all, they ask me, why am I getting 2 liberal arts degrees when I am interested in business? And then they also ask me, how does WWF tie into my business aspirations? And so I just wanted to speak to everyone who is watching who thinks that the environment and conservation has to be an extracurricular activity if they want to succeed in business that is not, let's say, directly related to conservation and environmentalism. The reason that I put so much emphasis on studying the environment, sustainability, and the way the world works is that I truly believe in order to be a successful businesswoman or man, you have to understand that sustainability in an economic, social, and environmental sense is key to keeping a business alive and to creating something that services the community. And so if there are any students out there who are watching this live right now, you know, and you're interested in business, I definitely think it's important to see if you can take some classes in marine biology, in just any environmental education classes, geography. There's so many options, so many ways to develop your understanding about the world that we live in, the world that you want to grow a business in, and how all our actions impact one another. So let's say, for example, even though, you know, I have a double major, it is in political science and sociology. There are so many different requirements that I have to juggle. One thing I am doing in order to further my own education on the environment is I'm taking an international law class, which you might think, okay, how does this relate? But actually we study environmental law, maritime law, all this stuff that I think will really inform the way I go about my career and just being a businesswoman, hopefully when I'm older. So, yeah.
Very
Awesome.
nice,
Yeah,
Nikki.
great.
Very nice.
So many people think that environmentalism and business are polar opposites, but they don't need to be.
No, absolutely. I definitely think that they completely go hand in hand. And they should.
Yes.
Yes. Do we have anything else that anyone wants to add before we close off? We've reached an hour.
I have one little thing that I want to say. I want to end things on a high note. If anyone follows the WWF-Philippines Instagram page, and I really, really hope that you do. If you don't already, then please make sure you do that. But they just announced that there's some good news. There's a group called Group of Friends to Combat Marine Plastic Pollution. And it's over 40 different states around the world that are now come to an agreement to work together on a global systemic level to combat plastic pollution. And WWF is one of the original founding members. And this is great news because plastic pollution is so often is being addressed at a localized level when it needs to be addressed at a global level. So this is good news for all of us, guys.
Excellent.
Yes, thank you so much. Well, To all
Thank
our
you.
viewers, thank you for being with us this whole hour. We hope you enjoyed. And then personally, and of course, on behalf of the rest of the NYC, I wanted to thank our two very, very special guests, Mark and Rove. It's been a pleasure having you here with us.
Thank you.
Thank you for letting us hang out with you guys.
Of course, we're more than happy. We're so thrilled to have you. And then, of course, I wanted to say thank you to Mina, Dane, and Gab, my fellow NYC members. Yeah, guys, it's been another great conservation conversation.
And thank you very much, Nikki, for putting all this together.
Mhm.
To all of our viewers out there, thank you so much for tuning in. If you'd like to learn more about the environment, even how your school can get involved, and if you want to ask WWF for more information and materials with that, then please go to wwf.org.ph. You can message us there. You can also find a lot of materials there. And let's all work together to, I guess, educate the population on how to take care of this planet that we all share.
Well said.
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, everybody. Gab, Mina, Dane, so good to hear from you. And Nikki, yes, of course, thank you for not only organizing this, but also hosting this as well. You did a fantastic job. So, and to everybody out there who tuned in, and to also who wrote to us all over the nation, we appreciate you. Thank you so much. Our greatest weapon against climate change is, of course, awareness. All right. So let everybody know your thoughts about the community and the climate. Thank you again, everyone.